All right, so the hip routine. This routine is a routine that I've been doing for a few years now. It's something that I pieced together based off of some movements that feel good for my body. I tend to use this before my lower body strength sessions, so as a general warm-up for my squat sessions, as a general warm-up for my flexibility sessions, like split sessions and such. I also prescribe this very often to many of my students, and most of them seem to love it. They feel like their body feels prepared and ready to go after doing it. So it's pretty low intensity. You can do it pretty often actually. You don't have to only do it as a warm-up. It also feels good just on a rest day or on a day where you want to get a little bit of more movement into your lower body. I call it a hip routine because you spend a lot of time working on the hips, but the knees are also going to be working, the ankles are going to be working, you get some stretching in the hamstring and the adductors and such. So overall, it's just a really good feeling routine. This is, if you do use it as a warm-up, it's a general warm-up. So this is mainly meant to prime your body, from going from rest into getting ready to do a session, increasing your body temperature. It's not gonna, let's say, get you ready for your squat session. You still need a specific squat warm-up for that situation. But either way, this is the hip routine. It's a pretty short routine. It actually starts in a deep squat. So I'm already in the squat. If it is challenging to sit in the deep squat for a period of time, let's say 1-2 minutes, 2-3 minutes, then I'd actually recommend that you elevate your heels. You're gonna be in a lot less angle dorsiflexion, which is, you're just gonna be more comfortable in the position. So, you can use weight plates, you can use some wedges, whatever it is, you can elevate higher than this as well. This already reduces some of the intensity on the shins. So we do wanna spend some time here, so do that as needed. I'll go ahead and demo it without the weights. So when I first come into the squat, I just spend a little bit of time in the squat. I feel it out. I move from side to side. I stretch the ankle a bit, each side. I do some movements of the knees. You can come onto each hand. Feel free to rest your hands on the floor. You can come onto one toe, onto the side. There's nothing specific here other than spending a little bit of time in the squat, moving around in it, breaking it in essentially. So from here, I like to do some deep squat reaches. It's usually the first thing that I do. So the way that I like to do it is I like to grab onto my hand, the elbow of that hand is pushing against the opposite leg, and you rotate the torso first. As you rotate the torso, then you can extend the hand. When you extend the hand, you can also externally rotate the hand. Internally rotate. Externally rotate while pushing the elbow into this leg and trying to get more rotation. So this position was really uncomfortable for me when I first started. I couldn't actually reach up to the sky without feeling like I was going to explode basically. So you do get familiar with the position and get used to it pretty quickly. So it's okay if you just rotate and lead with the elbow, and over time you'll have more access. So I tend to do that about 3 to 5 times on each side. All right, from there, I like to do some internal rotation of the hip. So we're just gonna bring the knee down, boom. Bring the knee down. Bring the knee down. We don't need to rush this. This is all about lubing the body up. So don't just try to rush through this process. When you've got the knee down on the ground, you can move through it. You can think about sitting back. You'll feel some pretty intense internal rotation going on. When you first start doing this, it might be very challenging as well. You might struggle to get through a few repetitions. You might struggle to get the leg all the way down. That's okay. This is just a warm-up. It's just preparing your body. So wherever you're at with it, it's totally okay. I do like to do about 10 repetitions, 5 to 10. 10, and I favor 10 repetitions, but can get a little bit burny in the hips as well. It's about 10 repetitions each side. Okay, so from there, bring the leg down and we'll come down onto we'll get the hips seated on the floor and we do shin boxes. Boom, hip thrust forward. So we have one leg is internally rotated, one leg is externally rotated. Boom, we do a few repetitions of that. The hips drive backwards on the way down. The hip touches the floor. Boom. If these are uncomfortable, you could also place a yoga block on the floor. It'll be a little bit more comfortable for the hips. And you can use that as a target. Come down to the block, come back up. Imagine a hip thrust when you come up. Engage those glutes. And then from here, we'll swivel the legs over to the opposite side and repeat. So we'll also do this for a good 3, 4, 5 repetitions. We're just trying to feel good. That's the thing. One day you might find that you need to do 10 repetitions here. Another day you might just need to do 2 or 3. So it's all about what's going on with your body. Boom. Boom. So that's what I like to do for the first portion of the hip routine. So from there, I like to do some Cossack squats and some drop stance work. So there's a Cossack squat. We're gonna spread our legs pretty wide, nice and comfortable, as wide as you need to go or as narrow as you need to go. Experiment with the setup and what works best for you. So Cossack squat, drop stance, what's the difference? The Cossack squat tends to stretch the hamstrings more. The drop stance tends to stretch the adductors a bit more. So the Cossack squat, the toes actually come up to the sky and only the heel is on the ground. So in this case, we might come down, toes to the sky. That's the Cossack squat. So in this situation, once you come down, you also want to spend some time moving around in it. Moving the torso, pointing the toes, moving towards the toes. If you have the range, you can come down onto the glutes, come back up for a few repetitions. Boom. Boom. You can come back up. Okay. We'll keep going with the opposite side. Exploring the position, you might get some cracks. Explore what you can do with the bent leg. You can push it back. You can place your hands down on the ground if you need to as well. It's all about exploring the position. We're just preparing the body for our training session. So come down onto the glutes and come back up. The other thing that feels great is to do some Cossack switches. So we go from side to side. So we'll come down and then we'll go to the other side, trying to keep the hips as low as possible. Doesn't matter how low they go. Just use the range of motion that's accessible to your body on that day. You can do this for a good 3, 4, 5 repetitions or more. All right, that feels good. And so now that's the Cossack squat. The drop stance, also called Pubu, comes from like the martial arts, wushu kind of background. So in this situation, we actually want to keep the toes pointed forward and down. As much as possible pointed forward. They don't have to be directly forward. They can be angled a bit. The opposite leg, we're just not going to lift the toes to the sky is all. And then the opposite leg is going to be externally rotated. So the way that I like to get into it is by rotating the torso towards the straight leg. So let's say I'm coming to this leg, come down like so. That's the drop stance. This is a little bit more challenging than the Cossack squat. It requires more ankle mobility and a little more flexibility in the adductors as well. So we can also do drop stance switches, just like the Cossack switches. We can also reach towards the foot. Explore the position, move around in it. You can use your hands to do the switches as well, same for the Cossack squat. As you get used to them, you'll find that you'll be able to do them without hands, and you'll notice I actually adjust my ankle position as I'm switching. The bent leg always has the externally rotated foot, and the straight leg has the internally rotated foot. So notice how I actually switch them. I adjust them as I'm switching. Boom. So that's all it is. That's the hip routine. It's essentially spending some time in the deep squat, doing some internal rotation inside of the deep squat, then doing some shin boxes, internal and external rotation for the hip, and then finishing off with some Cossack squats, some drop stance to warm up the adductors, further warm up the ankles, the hamstrings as well. And that's all it is. It should take about 5 to 10 minutes max, and it feels fantastic. Highly recommend you take it for a spin. Yeah, that's all it is.